Welcome to Certain Point of View's Trade School, where each episode a different host talks about a comic book trade paperback that they loved and why they love it.
Hello, Certain POV members. My name is Sean Muir, aka Movie Midness on Instagram and in the CPOV Discord, and I am very privileged and honored to be given a chance to contribute a piece to the new CPOV show entitled Trade School, where contributors can talk about various comic books that interest them and share them with others. So I thank you very much, Mr. Case Aiken, one of the administrators of CPOV Network, for giving me the chance to do this. The certain comic book that I have brought here to talk about is something that started as a comic but got lumped into a larger anthology around the mid-2000s. I have a story called The Surrogates. It is a comic graphic novel anthology by Robert Venditti and Bret Weldele, or Weldele, depending on how one would pronounce that. I first got introduced to this comic book series, lo and behold, by the fact that a movie adaptation ultimately came down the pipeline in the late 2000s. So in the year 2009, when I was just entering into my senior year of high school and really flexing a movie buff or movie fandom by means of, at the time, keeping up with what was heavily broadcasted in the printed world of Entertainment Weekly, I came across something on their calendar for a movie simply entitled Surrogates, without the in it. And I did see the movie. I think senior year high school me did like the movie at the time, but it wasn't too long afterwards, by the time high school was wrapping up, that I learned that, surprise of all surprises, it did not start as a movie. This story first began in 2005 as a comic series under the production company entitled Top Shelf Productions, based in Atlanta and Portland. And the basic underlying premise of the comic anthology graphic novel is that and it's important to note, the first one that was released takes place in the year 2054. There is also a prequel that was completed in 2009. The overarching theme or plot throughout this whole thing revolves around a fictional tech startup that ultimately goes mega corporation called Virtual Self Inc. The business model of Virtual Self Inc. is manufacturing robotic human surrogates that customers can purchase and use as, most literally, a surrogate for themselves to go off into the real world and live lives and do work, all while the human customer is able to sit in what's called the STEM chair, or the place to feel what the robotic surrogates feel, see what they see, and experience what they experience without the human customer ever needing to leave their home. Now, throughout this storyline, there, just like many different types of tech accomplishments, are people who abuse the tech. One of the plot lines is that, especially in the prequel book, before it gets to the main part of the narrative, kids are able to use their parents surrogates to basically, get free access into places that kids couldn't normally go. And then sooner or later, things can get too far. And then inevitably, these robotic surrogates find themselves at odds with a growing population of humans who, like in countless and countless storylines like this, see the robotic surrogates as a threat to humanity, and a human constituency seeks to eradicate the surrogates. Now, in here, I feel that a lot of what humans in this story feel about the threat of robotic surrogates is not unwarranted, because there are moments where surrogates are abused by bad faith actors in various parts of the city. The location also where this is taking place is called Central Georgia Metropolis. I'm led to believe that it's almost like a pseudonym, or placeholder for, any given larger metropolitan area in Georgia, in the state of Georgia. And then as the narrative progresses into the main part of the story, which was where the movie took place, the founder of Virtual Self Inc., even the founder himself, Dr. Lionel Cantor, is starting to believe exactly how various bits of technology that he's made are being abused, and is having this regret and this existential crisis. And the biggest proponent of this anti-surrogate movement among the human constituency is encapsulated by one person. This person known as the Prophet, a religious leader who is trying to save what little bit of humanity he can by eradicating the surrogates. I will highlight one key moment here that is actually spawning a lot of very good think pieces about it. This is in the prequel book, Flesh and Bone. And the city is just completely devolving into the moral unrest of humans coming after, the surrogates. In this book, the human protesters are called Dreads for some reason. And the mayor of Central Georgia Metropolis actually invites the Prophet to speak with him directly. I will not necessarily denote each time who is speaking, but we'll try to make it tone of voice wise who is who. But the first person to speak here is the mayor. And he's addressing the Prophet, who has arrived with one of his disciples or, right-hand person. And the mayor says this to begin the exchange. "Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Please have a seat. My desire to settle this dispute locally is all that stands between your people and federal troops. I'd say a show of courtesy is in order." Here's the Prophet. "Where you see a lack of respect, I see justification." Justification? Justification would be authorizing my officers to use lethal force. They could start treating Dreads like criminals instead of citizens. "Is the Lord is our light and salvation. Of whom should we be afraid? We are ready to sacrifice this earthly life because we know a glorious reward awaits us with the Almighty. That is not an inheritance that I will bargain away. You're new to this, so take a little advice from a career politician. Don't be such a hardliner. It goes against the spirit of negotiation. My people will not succumb to a sacrilegious life. So we fight it out until one of us is left standing? That moment is coming faster than you think. Thanks to Virtual Self, the police department just received a healthy upgrade. Side note, in this case, even police officers are able to hide in their precinct building and send out their police officer surrogates to the front lines. And when your jails are filled, and your hospitals are filled, and your morgues are filled, still, there will be more of us. Every believer who falls will be as Zachary Hayes, cut down by man's abominations. The more you defeat us, the larger our ranks will swell. Do not make the mistake of trusting that because you have more power, you are more powerful. That's your endgame? Self-annihilation? What kind of leader are you? Like you, I am a shepherd. Unlike you, I have no fields on which my flock can flourish. What exactly are you asking for? A land of our own. Give us a place where we can live under our own laws, and we will leave you to do the same. Give us this knot, and we will remain among you. I can't sprinkle pixie dust and make that happen. It's beyond the scope of my power. Hell, I don't know who would have the power. You are a career politician. I have faith that you will find a way. Not unless you're willing to meet me in the middle. I can't sell this to the state while your people are spreading panic. We both have to fly the flag of truce. Turns to his right-hand man. I must remain here to finish the Lord's work, brother. You have your instructions. Yes, Your Eminence. This is Mayor Langston. Get me the governor right away. In the main narrative that was not the prequel, but the first graphic novel to be published, the narrative and storyline take on a whole new element when human resistance figures out how to not only kill and terminate the surrogates, but find a way that also kills the human users. Whether that is ultimately what they wanted to do, that is the way that the narrative changes into the next and the main book. Reading a couple of reviews of the main anthology when it was published in the mid-2000s. Entertainment Weekly called this, quote, a resplendently grimy commentary. Writer-producer of Lost and The Middleman, Javier Grillo Maxwatch, said, The Surrogates is not just an expertly written and beautifully illustrated science fiction cop story rendered with a sharp eye for the human details that truly brings worlds to life. It is, above all, a knowing commentary on our consumer culture. The Surrogates exists not as a projection of the future, but as an urgent warning about our present-day lives. And also, I should highlight that there was this other quote from source I09 in 2009 when the prequel Flesh and Bone was released, where it reads like Philip K. Dick, the author of the original 1968 novel that would one day become Blade Runner, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? As if Philip K. Dick was writing an episode of The Wire, a smart, compelling, and adult work this graphic novel series, asking questions with no easy answers. I give a full recommendation to this graphic novel series and / comic book anthology. The best ways to enjoy it, I would say, are buying the two separate anthologies. You could call it a duology in that way. The prequel one being called The Surrogates, Flesh and Bone, and the main narrative book being called The Surrogates. And perhaps it's okay, I think, in the end, if you want to use the 2009 movie. It's been forever since I think I only watched once ever. It's okay, I would say, if you wanted to use it as a companion piece. The movie itself did get Bruce Willis to play the main detective protagonist, and you get to see what Bruce Willis's look-alike surrogate, looks like. And I will say that, if you're new to comic books or to graphic novels, there's a lot of dense thematic material in it. A lot of the Surrogates narrative in these graphic novels are filled with newspaper articles, written for the story, science journal, fake science journal entries, even various political cartoons that were made, thematically for the storyline. It thematically and conceptually, it gets pretty dense. But I would say if I were to highlight one of my most favorite parts of the whole duology, it would be the part that I read that depicts the intellectual debate between the prophet and the mayor of Central Georgia Metropolis. So thank you for your time, certain POV listeners. And thank you to Case Aiken and the entire administrative team behind CPOV Media. And I hope that you have all taken away and learned something nice and new today about Venditti and Weldele's duology, The Surrogates. Happy reading.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.